Chapter 3. Hannah barely got any sleep that night, and any time she did begin to slumber, she woke with a jump, the image of a fiery demon rising at the foot of her bed, scaring her awake. She rose in her bed, knowing the odds of getting sufficient rest to be minimal. Hannah looked around the room. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and yet she couldn't shake off the ominous feeling of being watched, or what to her felt more like hunted. The feeling of being caught and played with by the predator, she the prey, was the closest comparison she could make to that night. She wondered if she should tell anyone of her experience. It may increase her risk, but she couldn't defend herself against the powers of a sorcerer. If he wanted her dead, no amount of help would keep her alive as far as she knew. She looked at herself in the mirror across the room. Perhaps he would pity her, leaving her alive to live a miserable life of loneliness and suffering, a curse she's had since birth. A knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. "Hannah, I didn't hear you come in last night. Is everything all right?" Hannah's mother questioned from the other side of the door. Her voice sounded fragile. Hannah jumped from her bed to open the door, realizing she was still in her clothes from the day before. Her mother looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. Hannah frowned. "Ma, it's nothing. Are you all right?" Her mother asked again. Hannah, who continued to frown, nodded. Her mother forced a grin and walked down the hallway, grabbing her coat and keys before disappearing. A few seconds later, Hannah heard the front door open and close. She fiercely gripped the door in her hand, as if trying to squeeze the life out of the smooth wooden board. Her eyes turned to the floor as she felt them begin to water. Hannah changed out of her dirty clothes and headed to the kitchen. She listened carefully, but heard nothing. Van must be gone as well, she thought. Hannah looked at the flowers sitting on the table. She smiled at the beautiful shades of blue, wishing she could be as gorgeous as the cornflowers. But upon the table lay something that had not been there previously. A letter lay open. Though the stationery was plain, the writing almost floated across the page with its black lettering. However, in some spots the ink blurred and the page wrinkled, signs of water damage. Hannah read the first line and shakily exhaled. The letter was about her father. As Hannah read the letter, she understood her mother's emotional state. The writing detailed the prolonging of her father's traveling. He wouldn't be coming back to Wickborough for at least another year. Hannah sighed. The reality was the entire family knew the trade mission he was conducting would take a long time, considering the wars in the Northeast. For safety, they would have to travel around the battlegrounds and hope not to be taken hostage by either side. Hannah recognized her father being alive should be enough to relieve her, and yet her heart shook. Knowing of her father's absence made her feel more vulnerable, as if every moment without seeing him weakened her, and Hannah knew her mother must feel the same way. Hannah stepped outside. The day was warm, with the sun shining brightly. She looked around and saw no signs that anything was out of the ordinary. She sat on the steps and watched as the world passed her by. "Hannah!" At the sound of her name, Hannah turned to see Nina running toward her. She wore a huge smile and appeared joyous in her run. When she reached the steps, she stopped and took a few moments to catch her breath. "Hannah, after you left yesterday, I found the perfect dress," Nina exclaimed. Her face showed no anger toward Hannah for leaving her at the store, but rather sympathy that Hannah missed the opportunity to see her in the gown she decided to buy. "It needs tailored," Nina continued, "but I'm sure afterwards the prince will choose me for sure." "Sounds like you'll be the queen by next month," Hannah remarked in a dazed tone, the contents of the letter surrounding her head, blocking any other thoughts from entering. Hannah knew she should be happy, for a royal ball did not occur often within the kingdom of Wyvernon. But while Nina lived in a dream, Hannah was more grounded in reality. Nina had always been dramatic and regal, in a queenly way. Hannah could not see her working or raising a family on her own. Nina was the antithesis of herself, not simple in the slightest. "Next month, at the end of the ball, the prince will step to me and personally ask for the wedding to occur as soon as possible," Nina began, acting out the scene, her hands clutched to her heart, staring away into the clouds. "He'll say, 'My lady, your beauty and majesty astound me. It clearly could not be any other. May I ask for your hand in marriage?' And I'll say, 'Of course,' and then we'll kiss and live happily ever after." She placed her hands on her face in a fantastical wonderment, her eyes glimmering in a smile so sweet and innocent it could not be genuine. Hannah ran her hands through her hair and grinned at Nina's storytelling. Nina's optimism and confidence always amazed her. Hannah had once fantasized about becoming queen, but soon realized the dream was too far from the truth. Not even the lowliest men in the town were willing to ask for her hand, let alone a prince who could choose any girl in the kingdom. She knew she was going to the ball solely out of pressure she felt from Nina, and also because she did not wish to disappoint her mother. It would be disrespectful to ignore an invitation from the castle. If word spread, people may view the bakery in a different light, or worse yet, consider her mother irresponsible for raising her daughter as such. Granted, if word got around that she had a run-in with a sorcerer, people may avoid anyone associated with her out of sheer terror. For, even though sorcerers were nothing new, socializing with one, especially while within the market district, was considered forbidden. Nina noticed the solemnness in Hannah's expression. "What's wrong, Hannah?" Hannah's eyes connected with Nina. She didn't know if she should reveal the incident to Nina or keep what had occurred to herself. Not that she did not trust her friend to keep the information confidential, but for the sake of her safety. Hannah did not know much of sorcerers. In all of the tales she had heard, sorcerers considered their magic a sacred practice, and did not suffer those who did not practice the art to witness spells or rituals, unless they were the victim or sacrifice. After a catastrophic event which caused the death of several clean, meaning they did not practice magic, townspeople, magic was banned within towns and other high-traffic areas, though the laws differ from kingdom to kingdom. This led to many sorcerers abandoning towns and forming sanctuaries where they could freely practice their magic. Hannah did not know if there was any truth to this, nor even if sorcerers held themselves to a set code, but she could not deny the fear she felt when face to face with the man wearing the emerald cloak. His hostile aura and towering confidence made her feel so small, as if it would take little effort to crush her. "Hannah?" Nina gently questioned once more. She slowly approached Hannah and took a step beside her. "Hannah, you remember, right? You can tell me anything." Between the news of her father, the upcoming ball, and the events of the night before, Hannah was hit with a sudden, overwhelming sensation. She didn't know what to do about any of it. Her life had been so boring before. So simple. This combination of problems probably wouldn't faze most people, but it all felt like too much was happening at the same time. She had wished for some excitement, but this was not what she intended. The weight was too much for her weak self. "Nina, I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy. I won't laugh, I promise," she said, and crossed her heart with her pointer finger. The gesture didn't make Hannah feel any more secure. "Last night, I saw something I shouldn't have," Hannah said. At her statement, Nina leaned back and squinted in a confused manner. Hannah quickly understood how her sentence could be misconstrued, for thinking first of sorcerers was unlikely when exposed to them so little of the time. "That was a terrible way to put it," she continued, her shaky confidence evident in her tone. Even when talking alone with Nina, Hannah criticized herself for mistakes such as this, which seemed a lot worse in her mind when compared to Nina's. "Stop it. You always do this. Just tell me." "There was a sorcerer," Hannah started. Nina gasped at the word, an excited fear covering her face. "Well, there were actually two sorcerers." Nina leaned in further. Anyways, I saw the one summoning fire from his ring, and the flames dissolved into the ground. I don't know what they were doing." "What did you do?" "I ran." "Did he catch you? Please don't tell me he hurt you." "No," Hannah answered, but with Nina's question, a sudden realization hit her. "No, he didn't." The image of a man in the ruby cloak entered her mind. The emerald sorcerer and his hostile presence was in stark contrast to the ruby sorcerer. "Hannah," Nina reached out and grabbed Hannah's hands. "I know this is going to sound cold, but understand that I do have our best interests at heart. I don't think we should tell anyone, unless something happens." Hannah's face expressed her shock. Of all times to remain silent about an issue, Nina chose one which risks their lives. There may not be a chance to inform anyone if she has another encounter. Her mouth opened, but she hurriedly closed it, biting her bottom lip to prevent it from quivering. It felt as if a chill coursed through her body. She wondered if Nina believed her story. Perhaps Nina thought someone as simple as Hannah could never experience an event so exciting. Or perhaps she was jealous the event had not happened in her presence, or rather, that she was not in Hannah's place. "I just don't think we could get anyone to believe us, since we're both still alive and unharmed. Anyways, with the ball coming up, people might think you're trying to get attention, steal the spotlight. The story would do nothing but threaten you and your family's reputation. Does that make sense?" Nina asked, a motherly concern lacing her voice. Hannah's eyes met Nina's. She was serious. Every word she said she had meant. Hannah stared at her in disbelief, tears starting to swell. She wanted to block every emotion from leaving, and at this point it felt like her heart had stopped. Hannah looked away and shook her head, hoping to shake off the bad reality. She forced a giggle and wiped any trace of water from her eyes. "You're right," Hannah said. Nina grinned, only subtly, for not wanting to seem insensitive. "My mind should be focused on the ball." "That's the spirit," Nina replied. She held out her hand. Hannah grabbed it, and Nina pulled her friend in for a hug. "Ooh!" she squealed in an excited manner, her arms gently squeezing the negative thoughts from Hannah's brain. "We should go check out my dress. I'm already going depressed, having not seen it for so long." "Sounds like a good idea," Hannah responded. She felt in her pockets to ensure she had the keys. Making certain the door was locked, Hannah followed Nina to Dazzling Dresses to see Nina's dress. The shop was particularly crowded that day. Many of the other females who had been invited were looking for their perfect dresses. As Nina socialized and scoped out the competition, Hannah could not clear the images of the sorcerer out of her mind. When she had first reflected on the incident, she believed both sorcerers wanted to kill her. After all, that was always the end result in the tales she was told as a child. Sorcery and all who practiced it were evil. The man in the emerald cloak was all the proof she needed to affirm this. His deceitful smile and penetrating stare forced a fear upon her, despite her not having seen his magic, as if his natural disposition against non-practitioners of magic was hostility. Up until recently, she believed he was enough to prove the tales true. But then he came along, a man in a ruby cloak. She knew he was a sorcerer. She had witnessed it, and yet the terrified feeling she got when the emerald sorcerer simply looked at her wasn't present when the matter only involved the two of them. Even when watching the flames leap from his ring, Hannah never felt threatened. It was always a fear of the unknown, a fear of what she had been taught to fear. But even his voice calmed her heart when it felt as though it was trying to escape. Was that some form of magic? The questions continued to circle in her head until Nina found her way back. Her face appeared confident, and her arms were crossed in a way a leader does when watching their plan in action. She deeply inhaled and exhaled before sitting next to Hannah and sharing a wide smile. "I feel better now," Nina stated in a tone of satisfaction. "Why?" "Well, now that I know the competition, I can better determine my chances with the prince." "So what are your chances?" "I'm going to be queen!" Nina exclaimed excitedly. She attempted a hushed tone, but despite her efforts, the pair received glares from the others nearby. Hannah avoided eye contact with all of these ladies and stared at the ground. Nina was too overjoyed to care about their thoughts of her. When her fantasies about becoming queen dissipated, Nina glanced at Hannah and her smile disappeared. She could not remember the last time Hannah had been so upset as to let it affect their time together. Hannah looked up and saw the glimmer of concern in Nina's eyes. She sighed. "Hannah," Nina continued, "I don't know exactly what happened, and I don't expect you to tell me if it makes you uncomfortable. But I do know that no prince will look twice upon such a sad and distracted face. You need to focus on what's important, right?" Hannah nodded. The two stood and headed for the exit, the glares from the other girls still following them. The force multiplied as the gossip spread. She felt Nina's hand fall on her shoulder. "I've been thinking," Nina began in a serious tone. "What if it was simply a dream? Like one of those dreams that feel real? I mean to say, you've been under a lot of stress lately, stress that you're not used to. What if the stress leaked into your dreams?" "A dream?" "Yes." With this, Nina's eyes grew wide. "Or maybe like a nightmare." Hannah blinked a few times, whether because she did not know if Nina was truly serious or if she was in fact in a dream at the moment. A feeling of numbness overcame Hannah. She was no longer upset at Nina for not believing her, for even she would have trouble believing the tale if coming from another's mouth. Had she imagined it all? Hannah didn't know which reality to be true anymore. "A dream," she mumbled. Nina nodded, and the pair continued to walk the market district, looking for accessories to match their gowns. Maybe none of the events had transpired. Maybe it was Hannah's psyche's way of manifesting her stress in a manner she could more easily understand. Maybe it was a dream.